A marine diesel used to be a lifeline, just fuel, air, and compression, pounding hour after hour, impossible to kill. Today, that old iron heart has been replaced by a computer nervous system where a $5 sensor can silence a $20,000 engine. We thought we were saving the planet, but we ended up risking every sailor's most sacred rule, reliability. Before we lost confidence in new technology, what made the old engines truly immortal? And what exactly did we break when we tried to make them clean? A diesel engine does not ask much. Give it fuel, air, and compression, and it will run. On the Perkins 4108, that is not just a slogan, it is a promise you can test with your own hands. When air sneaks into the fuel line, the engine coughs and sputters, then dies. But this is not a disaster. It is a job for a wrench and a rag, not a laptop or a hotline. Start at the lift pump, a small metal lever bolted low on the block. This pump is driven by a lobe on the camshaft, rocking back and forth with every revolution. Its job is simple: pull fuel from the tank and push it toward the injection pump. If the system gets air, you prime it by hand, working that lever until resistance builds. You can hear the fuel move, feel it in the line. Next, loosen the bleed screw on the filter housing. Diesel seeps out, carrying bubbles with it. Tighten the screw. Move to the next one at the injection pump. Repeat. Each step is physical, direct. You are not waiting for a diagnostic code. You are watching for a clean, bubble-free stream. Now, crack open the injector lines at the top of the engine. Crank the starter. The camshaft spins, driving the plunger inside the injection pump. At about 2,000 pounds per square inch, low by today's standards, but more than enough, a sharp squirt of fuel leaps from the open fitting. Tighten it down. Do the same for each cylinder. You are restoring the trinity: fuel, air, compression. The engine fires. It does not care about software. It does not check for permissions. It runs because physics says so. This is why sailors trusted these engines. Every part is accessible. Every failure is fixable. The only tools required are a wrench, a steady hand, and the knowledge that, as long as you have fuel, air, and compression, you are never stranded. No passwords, no error beeps, just the sound of iron coming back to life. A marine diesel's reputation is not built on glossy brochures or marketing promises. It is earned hour by hour in the engine rooms of boats that cross oceans and outlast storms. The Perkins 4108 is a legend, not because it is pretty or modern, but because it delivers what matters: longevity you can measure in decades. 20,000 hours of service is not a myth. It is a reality logged in the logbooks of working boats and blue water cruisers. That is the kind of lifespan that outlives hulls, outlives owners, sometimes even outlives the shipyard where it was built. What makes this possible? It is the physics. At the heart of every mechanical diesel lies the holy trinity: fuel, air, and compression. Nothing more, nothing less. The 4108 runs a compression ratio of 22:1, squeezing air so tightly that even cold, thick oil cannot stop combustion. There are no computers, no permissions, no digital gatekeepers. A camshaft, a plunger, and a spray of diesel at just the right moment. Every cycle is a handshake between metal and physics. If you keep the fuel clean and the oil fresh, the engine will forgive almost anything else. This is not just nostalgia, it is a philosophy built on trust in physical law. The engine does not care about the weather, the state of the battery, or the latest software update. If you can turn a wrench, you can bring it back to life. That is why sailors talk about these engines with a kind of reverence. The trinity is always there: fuel, air, compression. The rest is just noise. When you are 100 miles from shore, you do not want an engine that can be silenced by a $5 sensor. You want one that answers only to the laws of thermodynamics. That is real immortality, earned, not engineered. In 1996, the rules changed. The Environmental Protection Agency drew a line in the sand with Tier 1 regulations demanding cleaner exhaust from every new marine diesel sold in the United States. Suddenly, the old way, fuel, air, compression, was not enough. Manufacturers had to squeeze more out of every drop, but they still clung to mechanical injection. Tier 1 was the sweet spot. It forced tweaks, better fuel atomization, tighter tolerances, maybe a turbocharger here or there, but you could still fix these engines with a wrench. No computers, no secret codes, just physics and steel. But the bar did not stay put. Tier 2 arrived in 2006, and the numbers on the emissions chart started to plummet. The law demanded a 50 to 70% cut in nitrogen oxides and particulate matter compared to Tier 1. That is not just a nudge, that is a cliff. Mechanical systems hit their limit. You can only advance timing and fine-tune fuel delivery so much before the laws of combustion push back. By Tier 3, which phased in from 2009 to 2014, electronics took the wheel. Now the engine needed a brain to hit the targets. Common rail fuel systems, electronic injectors, and sensors everywhere. Nitrogen oxides dropped another 20 to 50%. The air got cleaner, but the engine room got crowded with wires and circuit boards. Tier 4, starting in 2014, finished the job. This was the 90% solution, nitrogen oxides cut to a fraction of their old levels. After-treatment systems like selective catalytic reduction, diesel particulate filters, and exhaust gas recirculation became mandatory. Every new engine was now a computer on top of a block of metal. That is the price of near-zero emissions, complexity. The numbers look great on a graph. You can see the line of nitrogen oxides and soot fall off a cliff from Tier 1 to Tier 4, down more than 90%. But there is another line, just as sharp, charting the rise of electronics, sensors, and software. The air is cleaner, but the engine's soul is now on the other side of a firewall. The mechanic's wrench is no longer enough. The law did not just regulate pollution, it rewrote what it meant to trust your engine. The old way relied on steel and springs, but the law demanded numbers no wrench could deliver. So engineers reached for something entirely new, the common rail. Instead of each cylinder getting its own low-pressure squirt, a high-pressure pump now fills a single rail with diesel at 25,000 to 30,000 pounds per square inch. That is not a typo. 30,000 pounds per square inch, pressure so intense that a failed seal does not leak, it slices. If the old mechanical pump was a man sipping fuel through a straw, the common rail is a fire hose controlled by a microchip. At the heart of this system sits the engine control unit, the ECU, the engine's brain. It listens to a web of sensors, rail pressure, temperature, crank position, even exhaust composition. The ECU's job is to permission every drop of fuel, every pulse of air, every moment of combustion. Instead of a single squirt per cycle, the injectors now fire multiple times, pilot, main, post, sometimes 5 bursts in a single stroke. That is how you get near zero smoke and a quieter engine. The numbers on the emissions chart drop like a stone. Efficiency climbs. The exhaust barely smells like diesel at all. But for every benefit, there is a hidden cost. The mechanic's relationship with the engine changes. Where once you could follow a line, crack a fitting, and see the problem, now you are chasing signals. The high-pressure rail is sealed tight, off-limits without special tools. The injectors answer to the ECU, not your wrench. If a sensor reads out of range, the computer can decide to shut down injection entirely. The holy trinity, fuel, air, compression, still rules, but now the computer stands guard at the gate, deciding who gets in. The engine room fills with wiring harnesses, connectors, and sensors. Each one is a potential failure point, especially in a saltwater world. Corrosion, vibration, and stray current become new enemies. The promise is real: cleaner air, better mileage, more power from less fuel. But the price is complexity. The old iron would run on bad fuel and forgiveness. The common rail demands purity and precision. Miss either, and the whole system can grind to a halt, not because physics failed, but because a sensor said no. Salt doesn't care how much you paid for your engine. It seeps in through the smallest crack, works its way down a wiring harness, and settles into the heart of the system. On a calm day, that means nothing. But in a rolling inlet, with breakers on the bar and the tide running out, it can mean everything. There's a logbook entry from a cruiser who spent 20 years trusting his Perkins, then switched to a new electronic diesel. The first sign of trouble was a flicker on the dash, just a warning about the exhaust temperature sensor. It is a $5 part tucked deep in the spray zone where salt mist collects. One loose connection, a bit of green corrosion, and the sensor starts sending garbage data. The engine's brain doesn't ask for context. It sees a number out of range and reacts the only way it knows: limp mode. Instantly, the throttle drops. The boat, heavy with gear and crew, loses power. The RPM locks at 1,000. The tide grabs the hull. In a matter of minutes, steerage is gone. The bow swings toward the rocks, and the only thing louder than the surf is the beep from the dash. You open the hatch, hunting for something to fix. But there is no fuel line to bleed, no lever to prime. The whole engine is hostage to a single sensor and the software that guards it. The log entry stops at the Coast Guard tow. The engine, worth $20,000, was perfectly healthy, except it couldn't get permission to run. That is the danger: a $5 sensor, a bit of salt, and the promise of reliability all gone in a heartbeat. Modern marine diesels do not just break, they lock you out. The moment a sensor throws a code, the engine's brain demands a password. You are not fixing anything with a wrench or a multimeter. You need a dealer laptop loaded with proprietary software and a code that only the manufacturer can provide. It does not matter if you are 1,000 miles from the nearest dock or drifting into a shipping lane. Without that digital handshake, the engine stays silent. This is not a bug. It is the system working exactly as designed. Manufacturers argue it is about safety and emissions compliance. But for the sailor, it is a legal barricade. The right to repair ends at the edge of the diagnostic port. Even if you know exactly which sensor is corroded, even if you can see the green fuzz eating at the pins inside the harness, you cannot clear the code or reset the engine control unit, ECU. The software is locked, the engine is in jail, and you are holding a wrench that is suddenly useless. Marine electricians have a saying: salt water is undefeated. Corrosion creeps into every connector, every sealed plug. Spray a little salt mist on an engine harness and watch what happens. Over time, the copper turns green, resistance climbs, and signals start to drift. The ECU reads nonsense and then throws a fault. A $5 sensor ruined by a few drops of seawater turns a $20,000 engine into dead weight. The dealer laptop is now the only lifeline. If you are offshore, that lifeline might as well be on the moon. This is the new reality. Reliability is no longer measured by the strength of steel, but by the strength of encryption. The mechanic's toolbox has been replaced by a legal agreement. You own the hardware, but the software, the very thing that grants permission to run, belongs to someone else. Walk into any reputable marine engine shop these days, and you will find a waiting list for old iron. The Perkins 4108, the Yanmar GM, they are not just holding their value, they are climbing. A complete rebuild on a pre-emissions Perkins now runs between $10,000 and $15,000. That is for an engine that, on paper, might have left the factory 40 years ago. Meanwhile, a brand new electronic Yanmar, or Volvo, can set you back $20,000 before installation, and that is if you are lucky enough to dodge the dealer's markup and the mandatory electronic diagnostics kit. It is not nostalgia driving the price, it is cold math. Owners are lining up because a rebuilt mechanical diesel is the only thing left that promises freedom from digital lockout. The used market tells the story. Listings for pre-tier engines sell in days, often above asking price. Shop owners talk about year-long backlogs. One rebuilder in New England has a dozen engines on the floor and a list of names stretching into next spring. For a sailor, the choice is clear. Pay for reliability upfront or risk being stranded by a $5 sensor. In this market, old iron is not just holding value, it has become a lifeline. Inside a Perkins rebuild shop, engines line the floor, and some were pulled from boats older than their current owners. The shop owner, sleeves rolled, points to a Perkins 4-108 stripped to bare metal. He has seen more demand in the last 2 years than in the previous decade. Waiting lists stretch into next spring. It is not just nostalgia. Sailors want engines they can trust, engines that answer to a wrench, not a password. The law is on their side. Federal rules let you rebuild and reinstall a pre-emissions engine in your own boat, as long as you match the original specs. No emissions upgrade required. No EPA violation. It is a legal loophole that keeps the old iron alive, and business is booming. Every rebuild is a resurrection. The mechanic's hands bring back the holy trinity: fuel, air, compression. No computer stands in the way. If you can document the original engine, you can keep running, no matter how many times the regulations change. In this shop, reliability is not just a memory, it is a right. For every sailor who refuses to be stranded by a $5 sensor, the answer is clear: keep your old Perkins breathing. The Trinity still rules, and the law agrees. Right now, the demand for rebuilt mechanical diesels outpaces supply, as boat owners trade modern efficiency for the certainty of self-reliance. When every new regulation adds another failure point, reliability becomes a form of resistance. The sea still punishes hesitation. Out there, the only code that matters is fuel, air, and compression, and the confidence you can fix it yourself. Keep your wrenches handy. The ocean will always test what you trust.